Welcome back to Inside Indiana Overtime. I'm Seth and Ben Ladner. We're at Memorial Stadium in the press box. We just watched Indiana lose a tough one, heartbreaker. 27-20 in overtime at the hands of number 17 Michigan. Where to start? There's so much. There's a lot to talk about. I mean, you could get into the story. Let's start, let's start with the calls.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Some controversial calls were made today.
I mean, the officiating stuff. It started out Indiana was getting a lot of calls. Michigan actually racked up a lot more penalties than Indiana. I think it was something like 16-5.
They had 3 on one play.
Exactly. I mean, Michigan just they kept shooting themselves in the foot, and some of those penalties were a little questionable, and Indiana did get some favorable whistles, I thought, early on in the game. But then the script totally shifted. I mean, there was a key pass interference call against Rashard Fant where it looked like he had an interception, and upon replay, it looked even more like he had a clean interception. It was called pass interference right in front of the Indiana sideline, and Tom Allen was livid, to say the least, down there. That's a key point because Michigan, it only ended in a punt for Michigan. That was the result of the drive. But you think about Indiana could have had the ball inside the Michigan 50 with a chance to score. They ended up getting the ball back. All they got was a field goal out of it. And so that's just a key play that you can point to. If they don't call pass interference there, Fant gets the interception, maybe Indiana gets the score that they need to win the game. There was also the onside kick that which was a key.
Even before that, there was the 62-yard pass to Cobbs where they ruled it.
Right, where he said that, yeah. So, I mean, there's just all sorts of different calls and no calls that you can point to that, maybe went against Indiana. And Tom Allen was pretty upset after the game in his press conference. He went out of his way a couple times to talk about the officiating and, insinuated a few times that he didn't necessarily agree with the calls, and then kind of flat out just said that he didn't agree with the calls. And he was really visibly upset, and you could tell, at least to me, he felt like that one got taken away from him.
Yeah, I mean, the notable quote, the quotable quote from the press conference, I guess, was talking about the officiating. He said, you have to earn the right to get those breaks.
Yeah.
You have to earn the right to get those calls. And, I mean, it's pretty clear what he means with that. But, those were some big calls. And, I mean, in fairness, I do think the onside kick call, I don't agree with. Personally, I think that was clean. They should have given that to him.
Yeah.
But I think it worked out for the best for Indiana the way it went because they ended up getting the defensive stop. They got the ball back and were able to go down and take the tying field goal. Yeah, I mean, if they get that onside kick, maybe they get a touchdown. But Michigan probably would have had enough time without any timeouts for Indiana. Indiana's rushing. I think Michigan may have had enough time to go back and win the game if they get that onside kick.
It's a little bit like that Fant pass interference call where the results of the drive, that play didn't result in like a Michigan touchdown, and the onside kick didn't result in a Michigan touchdown. Michigan punted both times after both of those plays. It's the idea of what Indiana could have had those plays gone their way, and then the Cobbs catch, the one that went for 62 yards that got called back. That's another one where that one was questionable to me in the sense that he clearly went out of bounds, and they ruled that correctly, and he was pushed out of bounds and forced out of bounds, and they ruled that correctly. But then the verdict that he did not establish himself back in bounds before he made the catch, to me, that's if you acknowledge that he's forced out of bounds, and then you also acknowledge that he did not establish back in bounds, that's got to be some sort of pass interference penalty. I mean, that has to be something. And for them to just waive it, in incompletion, it doesn't really register a whole lot to me. And I actually disagree with all three of those calls just from an objective standpoint.
Yeah.
I still thought all three of those calls were the wrong ones, and some of them fairly obviously so.
Yeah, I tend to agree there. But I mean, there's still a lot of things in this game that Indiana could have done better to avoid the overtime in the first place and just come out with a win in regulation. I mean, this offense, I said it before, I've said it a few times now before this video, but I mean, if you cover up the names on the stat sheet and just look at the offensive stats, you can't convince me that Kevin Wilson isn't still running this offense because, I mean, look at it.
Yeah.
Your starting quarterback, 20 of 41, for 178 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks. Your starting running back, 14 carries, 68 yards, and a touchdown. I mean, that doesn't look all that different than the offense that we saw, especially given how different the offenses look this year.
Yeah, it was it's interesting because Indiana's offense didn't look all that great, but at the same time, Michigan's a great defense, and Indiana put up the most points in this game that an opponent has scored against Michigan all year. So it's tough to judge in that sense, and Indiana was helped out a lot by a lot of Michigan penalties, and that worked in their favor. So the stats don't necessarily tell the entire story of the yards Indiana was able to gain on offense, but still, like you said, 20 of 41, less than 50%. Morgan Ellison got it rolling at times, but never really put together a string of 5-6 carries in a row that really made Michigan focus on him for more than a couple plays at a time. You make a great point. The offense doesn't look a whole lot different. Obviously, Peyton Ramsey brings a different element with his feet and his ability to do a couple of different things, but it was a struggle.
It's not that the offense doesn't look different than the last year, because it does. If you watch the game,
right.
it totally looks
the
different.
Offensive stats.
It's just the change in the look isn't. This particular game didn't match the outcome.
Right.
But the concern I'm kind of developing with the running back situation right now, they only used Morgan Ellison and Mike Majette today, and Mike Majette only had one carry. Yeah. Mike Majette actually played very well as a receiving running back today.
We were talking about that during the game.
Yeah, we were. He
had
a really good.
He was much better pass catcher than he is a rusher.
That's the role that he played on IU for the last few years, and it's a role he's good at playing. The thing you got to be a little concerned about is just Ellison's style fits very well with what Mike DeBoer likes to do, just pound it up the middle. But I don't think I don't know how he looks just trying to bounce it outside, and especially down the goal line there. I think that in overtime, down the 1 yard line, Tom Allen said after the game, Michigan's a really good front seven, makes it hard to kind of play call there. I think an outside run may got the job done there. They tried to did they even run it once?
Well, we just haven't seen a lot of Ellison going to the outside. And that's your point. I'm not sure that
I'm not saying he can't.
Sure, yeah.
And I'm not saying that DeBoer necessarily needs to call that, but I'm not totally convinced that Ellison is that guy just based off his kind of bruiser running style. He's a very good fit for just trying to pound up the middle, a little bit like Jordan Howard was when he was there. But they didn't. Not that the other running backs in that rotation have really played well enough up to now to earn significant carries in the game, but it's got to be a little concerning, I think, that you don't, for a team that wasn't going into the season wanting one specific running back. Yes, this guy's gonna be really good for us. They said their strength was the depth they had at running back. They were going to be 4 or 5 deep at running back this year, and maybe they're getting away from that a little bit.
Well, I think Ellison is good enough to be the one guy.
I'm not saying he's not.
Yeah, so
right.
I don't think it's a problem that they don't have that depth running back. If they have the one guy who can get consistent yardage, which I think they do, if they give Ellison enough carries.
So I guess maybe the point I should have been trying to make is the play calling at
sure.
fourth, or not just fourth and 1, when you're on the 1 yard line and
you try to run. Yeah.
Should have run the ball. Should have. Easy to just ask Pete Carroll, but should have tried to run the ball. Obviously, should have tried something different. The baffling thing to me is why you had 2 or 3 plays where you had Ramsey rolling to the left.
To the left. Yep.
And in fairness, Michigan's pressure probably forced that.
But I think he rolled. I think those were designed rollouts. The last 2 down on the goal line, I thought were designed rollouts. It looked that way. I think if you're gonna roll out,
and he had Jason Harris on
right. And I don't have a problem with rolling out. I actually think that's Tom Allen mentioned with the way they were collapsing on Ramsey and putting pressure on him. It's a good idea to roll him out, and I agree. But I think you roll him out to the other side. Roll him out to the right where he's more comfortable throwing. Right-hand quarterback's more comfortable throwing.
And I also think more so in this game than I have all year, he looked kind of indecisive.
Ramsey did?
Just in general. There was one play that sticks out to me where it was like a 6-yard running play. It was that play where Sidney Cobbs had a huge block. Yeah. If you remember that. On that play, Ramsey cut it outside and picked up 6 yards, but I think he probably would have had 10 and a first down if he just stayed going up the middle.
Perhaps. I also think Michigan's defense makes you think twice about doing that kind of thing.
That's fair.
And you see so many bodies flying around on their defensive unit that if you go one way, it's covered up and they force you in a different direction. And who's to say if Ramsey had taken those up the middle, maybe he does break them off for larger gains, but at the same time, Michigan's so good at covering ground and flying around on defense, maybe they just close those gaps anyway.
That's fair. And I guess to get into the good things Indiana can take away from this game, first off, I think you got to look at the defense. Yeah. The concern there is you need start getting some takeaways. I mean, only 4 this whole season. It's now in 6 games. That's a concern. But I mean, the defense kept them in this game.
Yeah, and I think you can point to a lot of plays, not just in this game, but throughout the season, where they probably should have had takeaways and weren't able to get them. I mean, fan interception's a perfect.
Jonathan Crawford dropped a sick also.
Exactly. So I mean, Tom Allen points to these types of things after every game. Where Indiana, they get a penalty call, they drop an interception opportunity. It just, these things happen, and you'd love to have those become takeaways, because obviously if you don't get them, even if it is an incompletion, the offense can still turn around and score on the drive. But I think they're putting themselves in the right opportunities to make the plays that they need to. It's just up to them to go out and make them. And you're right, the defense did play really well today. And I thought even the offense in the second half, they came out and looked like a totally different team. That first drive they put together right out of halftime, after getting a 3-and-out against Michigan, and then just rampaging down the field with the big 31-yard Ellison run. He eventually punched it in down inside the red zone. I thought the offense just looked much better and more on the same page in the second half.
Yeah, but I mean, there were times where they just didn't in the second half also, honestly.
Yeah, they had 5 straight punts.
Most of that third quarter, and even a lot of the fourth quarter. I mean, it was really, they had that good Ellison drive to start the second half. But I mean, after that, you really didn't see much from the offense until after that Ja'Shawn Harris punt return, which, good segue. Ja'Shawn Harris just revived Indiana's game. I mean, they were down by 10 with 4 minutes to go, and Tom Allen just told Ja'Shawn Harris, go score, take it to the house. He was really close. I mean, he just got tackled by the last man. He's a game breaker.
Yeah, this game took a lot of different twists and turns down inside the last 5 or 6 minutes or so. I mean, Michigan with Higdon breaks it open. He had a 57-yard touchdown run, something like that, and it looked like Indiana was just done for after that. They went up 20-10, and then, like you said, Harris almost scored it like Tom Allen told him to, and then the onside kick. Indiana fans thought that they had that one. Turns out they eventually got the ball back anyway and brought it down inside the red zone. Griffin Oaks with a big field goal at the end of regulation as the clock hit 0 was huge. And Indiana, to their credit, they lost the game, but they found a way to stay in it, even though it looked like multiple times that they might be put away.
Right. I mean, that's a really impressive comeback. Down by 10 with 4 minutes to go, no timeouts, and you still get it. They really battled back in this game. There's something to be said for that. Now, moral victories are what they are. They're moral victories. They still lost this game. I think what matters is how they take this going forward.
Yeah, and Tom Allen said in the post-game press conference he feels like his team is building a resolve and a resilience that's going to stick with them throughout the rest of the season and continuing on into future seasons. I mean, this team's been in close games. They've played good teams very close for 3 or more quarters a lot of the time. And, like you said, no moral victories, and Tom Allen believes that more than anyone. He's as frustrated as anybody after losses, and a loss is always just still a loss. But, every game almost has some positives you can take away from it. This game's no different, and, a few different bounces of the ball here and there, and it's a different outcome.
Yeah, all right. So, Indiana moves to 3-3 on the year, 0-3 in the Big Ten, but, I mean, they got their 3 hardest Big Ten games out of the way. Wow. Potentially not, actually. Next week they hit the road to play Michigan State, who just beat this Michigan team. Michigan State's ranked number 21 right now. We'll see where they go this coming week, but unless they lose, it'll probably be another ranked opponent for Indiana, their 4th of the year. I will be at Spartan Stadium for that one. Ben
I will be at
Hysteria, which is the same night. We're getting into the overlap month. So be sure to stay on the lookout for everything to come from a busy week coming up from inside Indiana. So for Seth Tao, I'm Seth Tao. I'm Seth Tao. For Ben Ladner.
That's Seth Tao.
Thank you for watching Inside Indiana Overtime. Be sure to check out InsideIndiana.com for all our game coverage and for all the basketball and football coverage we will have coming up in the next week. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
He's Seth Tao.